Good day guys, my name is Lord Tomo. Welcome again to another Sonic the Hedgehog toy item collect video. As you know, I'm good old Lord Tomo and we have the good old Blues to here, Sonic the Hedgehog. Let's get to the actual review because that's what we're here for. This is referred to or known as, depending on which store you go to really, the Sonic the Hedgehog Sonic Boom 8-inch Emoji Plush by Tomy. Now for those who don't know, Tomy is currently the current license holder for mass manufacturing of plushies, action figures and other little fun stuff throughout. So bravo to Tomy for picking up and creating this actual series. Tomy have created other series such as the Super Deformed Hand and the 8-inch line, amongst other ones, the deluxe Sonic Boom plushes, etc., which I will eventually review down the track. But for the sake of this particular review, they've released this series which is called the Emoji series, which I think is phenomenal straight at the bat. But I will of course go through the goods, the bads, and my personal opinions on various things. Now, for those who are wondering why this is called the Emoji series, pretty much every single Sonic plush that looks like this, body sculpt wise, is unique in that the only difference is it's got a different face. There's a happy, there's a sad, there's a sleepy, and of course this is referred to as the cute. I don't know why they would call it the cute one, but it kind of looks like more of the angsty face, you know, when you punch someone in the face and they're like, that's probably their face. But it does look pretty adorable, so I guess I'll give it a pass why it's called the cute. Now, what makes them all common is the body sculpt is exactly the same. Tails has its own sculpt, but that will look exactly the same. Same with Knuckles when that comes out. I think that's going to be wave 3 or wave 2. And the only thing that makes it different is the actual face itself. So let's get into the actual review. I'll give you my pros, I'll give you the cons, and I'll give you my personal take, because that's what we're here for. We're here to discuss, is this worth it? Which I'm going to say straight out of the bat, I think it is. So let's get it. Now let's go into the actual head sculpt, because that's primarily what makes it unique. Oh, I wouldn't say unique, but one of its selling points amongst other things. So the actual head sculpt itself is pretty much homogeneous to that of the 2D-ish drawings of Sonic the Hedgehog. Of course, it's very spherical, and you have 1, 2, 3 spikes, which give it the classic Sonic the Hedgehog look. Now, of course, it is extremely well stuffed. The stuffing that's in the head, I think it's cotton, is completely different to the stuffing that's in the actual bottom. I think this is bean balls. Well, I don't know the exact term, but it's kind of like, you know, those bean bags where you throw yourself in and it kind of like you go into them. But those bean bags, these have like kind of like ball bearings in them, and it's you have to, I guess for the most part, pick one up to actually feel the difference. The stuffing on the head is completely different to the stuffing of the body. Not 100% sure on why they've done it like that, but I guess it's pretty unique in its own right. I mean, I don't know if it's a cost benefit thing, but it is what it is. Next, let's get into the actual ears. The actual ears is simply it's a two-piece material. You have one that's the triangle, and it flips over to the top of the head, and of course you have the ear canal, or the ear socket as I like to call it, which gives it the interesting, yeah. Now my one has a tendency of going down. That's simply the way I had a package, so over time it will just form there, but of course if I put pressure like this over time, it will stay up. In this particular one, I'd like it to stay up, but I will do it down the track. Now, of course, if you look closely to it, I like the conventional plushies from way back in the day. These use an interesting stitching method. It's more of an embolding effect, as in it's not just one material just put onto the ear and just stitched around and it looks flimsy, cheap, and just not good. This actually looks, if I can get a really good view of it, there we go. You can actually see how it embolds in just around the actual ear canal around there, which has a phenomenal effect. And if you look at the eye sockets, exactly the same, and it's exactly the same for the eyes, the nose, and of course the mouth, which I think is phenomenal in terms of detail. It's one of those techniques where you don't necessarily appreciate it as much until you receive other plushies throughout the lines and generations, and you can really appreciate the high quality of detail. Now, it's exactly the same on either ear canal, which really gives it this very prominent look, which is so phenomenally adorable, to say the least. Now let's move further down, and you do have, of course, his eyes, or his eye sockets, or some like people like to call him, he's a cyclops, because it's literally one eye with two little pupils. So a cyclops with two dilating pupils. Sonic logic. But it is phenomenal. So as I mentioned previously, they have the embroidering effect on the ears canal. It's exactly the same on the actual eye socket, which really gives it this prominent look, this very prominent aesthetics to it, which I think sets it apart from every other unique plushies out there, which I think is pretty adorable. As I mentioned, the nose, besides the eyes, the nose is pretty much using the same effect, and you do have his mouth, which is pretty much just red, which kind of gives him this adorable smiling face to it. Now, if you look further down, you do have, of course, his snout. His snout doesn't have that embroidering effect, but it is extremely well stitched in that it's a two-piece. So that one piece is the head and the other piece is the snout, amongst the other ones, which is the eye sockets, etc., etc. And it does what it does. Would I have preferred it to have an embroidering effect? To be honest, now that I think about it, no. Back in the day when I picked it up, I was like, yeah, it should have looked better like that, but nah, it's unique in its own right. Now, if we go further top, we have this little, pardon me, we have this little hook. That's what I'm going to call it. It's a plastic hook. It's stuff that you generically have on mass retail plushies or in, depending on toy lines, etc. I feel over time, if you choose to hang it, unless you're super careful, it will rip and snap over time. I'm not going to hang my plushes in this. I like to have them displayed. But in this particular instance, I can really feel like over time, it will basically snap. And I can almost guarantee you, depending on the person you are, it will bother you or you just won't care. Me, I like to have my plushies purely as 100% aesthetically the way I bought it, simply because I'm a collector, but I'm going to try to cover this from both collector point of view and, of course, just playability and just a general user, because not everybody's a collector and not everybody is a general user. It really depends on you as a person. I would have preferred it, though, either from a collector's point of view or just a general use point of view, for this plastic to be thicker, because I will imagine over time it will basically snap off if you're careless. Also, to add to that note, of course, if you get this dirty and you wash it, as you can imagine, rip and tear, and this would eventually come off eventually. So that's something to look out for. It's totally up to you. Next part of the actual head, you do have, of course, this little hashtag. Just a little closer look over there, and it is a picture of Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's not focusing because life is horrible. Maybe it will focus. Who cares? You do see the picture of Sonic the Hedgehog. You open it up, of course, you have obligatory information. Not really caring about that, and of course you have more obligatory information at the back as well. Now, this is a nitpick that if anybody's been checking out my reviews, will pretty much be on the same page to an extent. They're kind of like, oh, okay, Thomas is always going to cover this regardless of what we say, so I'm going to cover it. I understand why they have this hashtag, the size it has, and on the actual plush itself. Purely from a marketing point of view, purely from a display point of view, you want a mass appeal to little kids and you want them to pick them up and mess around with it, of course. Me personally, this is an opinion. This is not a negative on the plush itself. I would prefer this to have been in a less intrusive place, maybe in the back of the head, maybe on the bottom of the hashtag, just to keep it away. I'm not going to rip it off. Like I said, I'm more of a collector than an actual general buyer, consumer, to say the least. Purely preferential opinion based. It does not take anything away from the plush itself. Now, let's get into something that does take away something a little away from the actual plush itself, which is the lack of spikes, if any, at all. None. No spikes on the back of the head. Sonic has always been a staple in terms of having spikes, amongst other things, of course, and I would have preferred it to have maybe a few little bobs and bits of spikes on the back of the head. Or maybe kind of like have an embroidering effect just to show that's where the spikes could have been. Now, they could have done that because at the back of his butt, there you go, in the back of the butt, you can actually see the embroidering effect of an actual tail. The tail on this plush itself does not come, does not come out at all. There we go. Focused. Awesome. It does not come out at all, and I would have preferred it too, personally, but if they're going to have this as an effect, that's perfectly fine. I just would have preferred if they had an effect like this, maybe add a few little spike indentations to give it the illusion that there are spikes. Now that is, I wouldn't say negative, that's more of a design questionable negative. Like, what's the thinking behind that? Maybe cost efficiency, cost saving, I'm not 100% sure. But overall, the head sculpt is phenomenal. Further down to his neck area, you do have kind of his staple Sonic Boom scarf, which pretty much goes all around and ties up. I think that's adorable. It's needed. It is a Sonic Boom, Sonic the Hedgehog, of course, on the actual side over here, you have obligatory little hashtags where it just has information. Not necessarily bothered, but of course you can see it if you so desire. His hands are exactly the same in terms of design. Now, of course, I will bring it in. There we go. It's literally just a round board, and it's exactly the same on either side. So just to not confuse anybody that might be thinking. And of course, with Sonic Boom characters, they tend to be a little bandaged up, just designed for it. And it has just like literally one material on either side, just to give it the bandage effect. Nothing wrong with it. It works, and I think it's adorable. It is an emoji, and just the way it looks is phenomenal. I would love to have the emojis in a kind of a mobile phone format. Personal preference, but that's just me. Next, you do have his fat little tummy. And of course, if you look closely, you do have the embroidering effect happening there as well on his little belly, which I think is phenomenal. And if you flip around, as I mentioned, you do have a little tail, but of course the tail is different. Next, of course, we have his feet. Both feet are exactly the same in terms of making design. So whatever I show you on one, it's exactly the same on the other. So if you look closely there, come on, focus. Maybe it doesn't want to work. There we go. You have kind of his straps, and it basically has the same embroidering effect, and you have two materials which cross each other, which does give it, of course, the bandage effect. Now, I would say this is more of a design questionable negative than anything else. I'm going to have a plush sitting down. I would have preferred it to have like shoe grips, just to say, hey, look, this is, you know, that's his shoes, because it kind of looks style, you know. I would have maybe preferred the bandages to cross over as well. Like I said, I would have preferred it to have grip, because I'm going to have these plushes sitting down. It is what it is. How much did I get it for? I think in Australia, I think it was about $18. I purchased from our Europe's toy distributor called toywiz.com. Highly recommend it. A little expensive, but that's why I get it. I'm not promoted by them. They give me nothing for free. I'm just a normal consumer, but that's where I get it if you're in Australia. If you're in the US, I'm sure you can purchase it in most Toys R Us and various stores. If you're in Europe, I'm sure it's the same deal. But in Australia, it's a very niche market, to say the least. So it is, I wouldn't say pricey, depending on the person that you are, but he does have I think that's standard price for plushes in this range. Overall, do I love it? Absolutely. This plush is definitely a unique plush range series. Not often do you get stuff like this. I highly recommend it if you're the sort of person that likes to collect various plushes out there. Me, I've never been a super into plushes, so I've never got into the very beginning. I like the merchandising, but plushes, I just don't know enough. I have eventually, I'm mumbling my words, I have, of course, got into collecting plushes, so my collections of Sonic plushes is expanding as the time goes by, but it's not definitely something I'm gonna like throw everything in the kitchen sink to get every single one of them, because I can admit that there are some bad plushies out there, just like there are some. I recently purchased a bad plushie, which is considered not super rare, but considered rare, and I thought it was the most atrociously made plush out there. I will review it, of course, but we'll get to it as we get to it. But the Emoji series, highly recommend it. Definitely, it's unique, and that's always been the thing for me when it comes to anything Sonic related. Being that a person that like myself likes to collect a lot of Sonic stuff, I like uniqueness. I wouldn't say rarity. I do like rare, but I like uniqueness, something that stands out. And with most of my friends or most of my mates that come over and they check out my room, and they tend to mess around pick up these plushes and talk about, you know, they're like, oh, this is pretty unique. Where did you get it? You know, opposed to the other ones which are classed as rare, and they're pretty much stock standard. They look like every other, you know, stock standard plush out there. These ones are unique, and I absolutely recommend it as a person that's a collector, as well as a person who just wants to pick it up. Maybe you're not as much of a hardcore collecting every Sonic piece out there. Maybe that's perfectly fine. Some people are, some people are not. But as a unique piece, I think it works on all fronts. Highly recommended. Tommy, you did a phenomenal job. I just wish you continued the Super Deformed then, because that's kind of my thing, to say the least. Rarity, 1 star out of 10, simply because it is super common right now. Maybe we super rare down the track, who knows? I don't collect them because of rarity purely. I collect it because if I enjoy it and it looks good on my shelf, I'm definitely going to pick it up. Well, guys, let me know what your thoughts on this. I mean, I enjoy these series. The next ones that I'm going to be doing is the Tails. Tails Wave 1 is full Sonic, so you can check out the other Super Deform, not Super Deform, the other Sonic emojis ones, which is the Smiley, Sleepy, and Sad on my channel. And there's also a playlist. Definitely check all those plushies out if you wanted to. Wave 1 also consists of 2 Tails, and I think Wave 2 is going to consist of more Tails, I think another Sonic, and a couple of Knuckles, and I can't wait to do the reviews of Knuckles. So the next one will be Tails. But from what you see, is it something you would pick up? Is it something it's not up your alleyway? Who knows? Guys, let me know. Speed on, take care, and of course, till next time.